So let's go ahead and move forward because we all have other meetings that we're going to have get to, and this thing will also shut down in here, our use of this. Okay, thank you. I would like to call, I don't have a gavel, I'll knock. I'd like to call our Truckee Meadows Water Authority meeting for Thursday, January 18th, 2024. And let it just be said that we did try to do Zoom. Oh, yeah, thank you. Now the power. We did try to get on Zoom, and if someone tried to get on Zoom, we apologize, but we have technical difficulty. We did everything in the world possible, but it still did not work. With that said, we are going to go ahead and go to roll call.
Anderson?
Here.
Andriola?
Present.
Breckus?
Here.
Dare?
Here.
Stewart?
Here.
Hill?
Here.
Reese?
Here.
Zimmerman?
Here.
Cavallera?
Here.
Sorry. We have a quorum.
Thank you so much. If you'd stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. And Member Breckus, you mind leading us? Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much. Okay, we're moving on to public comment. Do we have any public comment?
I have none.
Okay, seeing no public comment, we're moving on into our possible board comments and acknowledgements. I have 2 acknowledgements to make, but before I do that, I would like to open to the board if there's something that needs to be said or shared.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I don't know if you were going to pay a tribute to Jason Geddes, who passed away recently, and sadly, I didn't think to do that at my board meeting, and I just wanted to thank him for his service and his pay some condolences to his family and friends, and just such an impressive person and such an advocate for our environment and all the things that TMWA stands for. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And we'll be having a moment of silence for somebody else at the end as well, and we'll include him in there as well. For sure. We do have 2 people. One of the things that I implemented during this time is call it a chair award. And it's not really something that I personally pick because I don't really know all these people, but I've asked our director to give me people's names here or there that he thinks that are just top notch that we want to honor. And we have 2 today, 2 people we probably would not get to meet if we didn't do this. And so I'm kind of excited. I'll first start with Juan Esparza. And I don't mind, if you don't mind, do you mind just coming down so we know who we're talking to? You don't have to say anything. I know that was promised. No, they were told they don't have to, or they wouldn't come. So if they decide to say something, the mic is yours. But I do want to read this. Juan has been with TMWA almost since its inception, as he joined the organization in July of 2001. Prior to coming on board with TMWA, he worked for both public utility and private consulting organizations for another 15 years. His time with TMWA has been spent with the engineering group, working on a variety of capital improvement projects from transmission pipelines, booster pumping, and pressure regulation stations, well improvements. He's also been fortunate to have been involved with some type of work of all 3 of TMWA's surface water treatment plants. Interspersed were a couple of adventures with our Donner Lake dam structure and associated permitting gauntlets, entanglements involving our neighboring Golden State's famed regulatory agencies. He'd have a full complement of hair follicles if it wasn't for those projects. How you doing, bro? You're doing okay, buddy. That's not a joke, he says. He wrote this. I did not write this. Make sure. His most cherished memory of TMWA will be his favorite Juanism of telling folks that having him work on a project is just like losing 4 or 5 of your best people. With that said, one of the things that we're doing with this is we don't have this big award to give you except a big pat on the back, say thank you, but you do get to bring we're going to have lunch for your team provided something because we know you don't do it alone. And so thank you for your service. Would you like to say something? Oh, yeah, I think so.
All right. Thank you, organization. Thank you to the board. Had a pretty good run. In fact, I'd say it's been a hell of a run. Enjoyed my time. And I'll miss people that I work with.
You're not retired yet, I heard. It's coming.
It's coming, yeah. Just don't.
But you're not retired yet, so don't act like you're gone. We have work for you to do.
Yeah. Things around.
Very good. Would anybody like to say anything?
Thank you for your service. I really appreciate it, and I know the community does. And you're one of the people in the background that is doing the hard work, so we really appreciate you.
Actually, I am looking for the janitorial contract. Thank you very much.
And then we have Steve Volk, Principal Construction Engineer. Steve, if you don't mind coming down. If your wife wanted to come stand by you, she's welcome too. I don't. You're on your own, buddy. And you don't. We promise you don't have to say anything if you don't want. There you go. Well, Steve started at Sierra Pacific Power Company in March of 2000 in the water division before ultimately moving over with the creation of TMWA. Steve manages TMWA's street and highway program over the last 17 plus years. He has worked closely with other entities such as RTC, Washoe County, Sparks, Reno, NDOT, and other utilities, replacing aging water mains all over town and off-roadway projects. Staff tried to tally up how many miles of water main Steve has replaced, but got tired and just started scheduling his retirement party at his favorite bar. Steve has left a lasting impression in the Truckee Meadows area and will be missed at TMWA. Staff will especially miss his karaoke performances at the annual staff holiday party. We need a song. Yeah. Will you at least tell me what song you would sing if you had to sing? Mac the Knife? What are we looking at?
I've been everywhere, man.
There you go.
That's kind of what my job is.
If you ever want to share something, you're welcome to.
Well, no, thanks for this. This is, we're surprised by this. The one thing I do want to say, it's when you talk about when I started at Sierra Pacific, and then we came over, June 11th, 2001, TMWA was created. We took over the PSA, oh, there we go, the old PSA call center on Corporate Avenue, where we are now. And I remember going in there, and there were just long tables, fold-up tables with computers, and that's how we started TMWA. That was June 11, 2001.
Very cool.
And here we are today, so.
Well, we
And
appreciate your
since then, I've put in
service.
pipe everywhere, so.
Appreciate your, anybody would like to say anything? Go ahead.
Thank you so much for your service and for carrying us from the beginning to where we are today. And many of our community members, we have those TMWA 20th anniversary jackets. They can't believe that TMWA has been around for 20 years. I think we all take it for granted.
Neither can I know.
And it's because of you and the rest of our team that people can rely on clean, wonderful water. So thank you.
Thank you.
And to just to make sure you understand too, your biggest prize is you get to tell everybody they're eating lunch because you're awesome. So we're going to provide that too. Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Thank you. All right.
Okay, we're moving on to the approval agenda. I'm sorry, yeah, approval agenda number 5. Do I have anybody who wanted to move anything or? Yeah, first. I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Moving on to our number 6, approval of the minutes for the December 14, 2023 meeting of the TMWA Board of Directors. Does anybody want to pull anything, we'll talk about anything, or do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
I have a first, do I have a second? I have a tie for second. You can put down whoever you'd like. And all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Moving on to number 7, water supply update. We've been waiting for this. We love talking to you after it snows. Bill Houck.
Morning, Board. For the record, Bill Houck, and I do have a brief water supply update for you. So I have news. So as everybody knows, last year was a record snowpack year for the Tahoe Basin. Ended up about 250% of normal on April 1st. The runoff from that snowpack filled all of our upstream reservoirs. Some of them, most of them actually spilled. Lake Tahoe came close to filling, 0.7 of a foot from filling. And the story here is that a significant amount of carryover storage was able to be carried over into this winter and really set our region up for the next couple of years. It also basically ended the 3-year dry run or the 3-year drought. You can see that most of California and most of Nevada are still not in drought conditions. The only exception is extreme southeastern Nevada, the Las Vegas area, which is at this time abnormally dry. So it has been snowing, as everybody knows, but it just hasn't been snowing, the way it should be for this time of year. This is a picture at Donner Lake on Tuesday morning, and normally we'd have quite a bit more snow up there than we actually do. You can see this in this snow water equivalent graphic from the NRCS. The black line is 2024, and for reference, what you want to compare that to is the light green line above that, which is the percent of median for Tuesday. I printed this off on Tuesday. So it has been snowing, just not getting those giant storms that we typically have by this time of year. But we are only about a third of the way through the snowpack building season. And just for reference, I've put 2023 and 1983, which were our largest Lake Tahoe Basin snowpacks, on April 1st and May 1st, respectively. And also you can see that we're already above 2015, which was our driest snowpack year on record. Basin-wide, we're about 62% of median right now. The storms that we've had the last week and a half have added about 3 to 3.5 inches of water content to the snowpack, which is really helpful. And so we've been in an active pattern. And the storms coming in this Sunday, Monday, have the potential to add another 2 to 3 inches of water content to the snowpack, which could put us much closer to being on track for this time of year. So we're in an active pattern, and it's good to see. So we are off to a slow start, but what does that mean? I would say it means just that, we're off to a slow start. Doesn't mean right this year off. You've all lived here long enough. We've seen fabulous Februarys, miraculous Marches, awesome rainfalls, and, even seen snowpack building well into May. So just for reference, there's a number of years which have started out slow. There's 3 years here on this graph, which has started out quite a bit slower than this year, notably 1996, the aquamarine blue line up on top, 2000 and 2008, and they all ended up average or better. So, and we are only a little bit more than a third of the way through the season. So, slow start, but doesn't mean too much right now.
Thank you.
And even with the the snowpack the way it is in the Tahoe Basin, the projection for runoff and Lake Tahoe rise is still pretty decent. Looks like Tahoe will at least come within at least a half a foot from filling again. And a normal snowpack year by April or May would completely fill Lake Tahoe this time around. And normal river flows the rest of this year into 2025. And this is a 5-year hydrograph just showing actual and projected Truckee River flows. So regardless of what happens this year, normal Truckee River flows because of the storage we have upstream. And as I mentioned, there's a storm coming in later this weekend, and it could add a nice amount of moisture to the snowpack that's already up there, getting us closer to where we should be this time of year. So the story, record snowpack last year basically ended the 3-year drought. All reservoirs on the system completely filled and spilled. Tahoe came within 0.7 of a foot from filling, 90% of capacity. Significant amount of storage was carried over into this winter, actually just about as much as was legally permissible. So in an average winter this year would mean that Lake Tahoe completely fills. And we are off to a rather slow start, but we are only a little bit more than a third of the way through the season. Still too early to write it off or project where we're going to end up. Normal flows through this year and into 2025, regardless of what happens with the snowpack. And we're still in a really good position from a water supply perspective. And that's it. And I'll take any questions.
I wish everyone gave us those good reports. Thank you very much.
Thank
Any
you.
questions? Very good.
Right.
Thank you so much.
All
We're going to move on to number 8, report and discussion on the results of TMWA's 2023-2024 cash optimization refinancing. And you better smile this time. I'll tell that story when you're done. Go for it.
Okay, good morning, members of the board. Matt Bowman, TMWA CFO for the record. So I'm here to provide some very good news. You'll recall back in August and September, I brought a couple of items to the board that laid out a plan to refund approximately $75 million of TMWA's outstanding senior lien debt. Well, we closed on that transaction today, actually. So the plan was to use a cash optimization refinancing strategy to take advantage of lower interest rates, refinance our debt. Normally, IRS rules don't allow you to do that in advance of the call date of the bonds that you're refunding. However, through this strategy, you're able to do that. You execute the strategy through two transactions. One is the defeasance of the outstanding debt. You wait 14 days, and then you issue new bonds to replace that. So following the September meeting, when the board authorized us to move forward with the transaction, interest rates were on the rise, and so we paused the transaction. What happened was our estimated return on the transaction, it hit 5%, which was our minimum that said we're not going to move forward. That's what the board authorized us to do. That was a good level, and so we paused. Along with PFM, our financial advisors, Wells Fargo, who was underwriting the transaction, we continued to monitor rates. And if you recall back then, rates started to decline pretty rapidly. That meant that the transaction moved back into a favorable position. So it was mid-November, we re-engaged, and rates were on a trajectory that looked promising, and so we started to go through the process to ultimately execute that transaction. On December 20th, rates continued to move favorably, and we executed the first part of the transaction, the defeasance of the outstanding debt. And then on January 4th, 2 weeks later, we priced the new bonds to replace that. The pricing went extremely well. We had over 8 times subscription from investors on the bonds on the negotiated sale, so we were able to move those rates even lower on the new debt. Ultimately, this transaction resulted in a net present value savings of $12 million, or about 17%. So this is where I smile and say that it worked out phenomenally. A lot of it was timing. But I want to point out that the board extended some trust to TMWA to execute this transaction. It was something that was new for TMWA, and it wasn't a common type of transaction, but the board gave us the flexibility to execute it and also to execute it at the right time. And so with our financial advisors and the underwriters, we worked through that process and then ultimately did it. And that's why it was successful. So what does this mean for TMWA? $12 million of savings, right? So we're not recommending any changes to the upcoming rate increases. We're moving forward with that. It's not like somebody wrote us a check for $12 million. The savings is realized over time through reductions in interest payments on the debt service and reduction of principal. And unfortunately, this year, water sales are already significantly lower than budget. So we're about $4.5 million lower through December just this fiscal year already. So there's a little bit of a hole there on the water sales side already. We're still projecting debt service coverage to be lower in fiscal 24 and 25, to be just lower than the 1.5 times board goal, as you might remember from the funding plan that we've presented. That said, this savings, it gives us a lot of flexibility. We're in the process right now of developing our budget for fiscal year 24, which includes our capital improvement plan. And one of the things that we've talked about in the last year and a half or so is aging infrastructure and the need to really move forward and accelerate both preventative maintenance and some major replacements, rehabs of existing infrastructure. So one thing that this savings does allow us to do is to really move forward and accelerate those programs without, with a little bit less financial constraint than we've had. So that's good news. Very excited about this. It worked out really well. It's a big deal for TMWA, and again, thank you to the board for allowing us to do it.
So if you guys remember, just so you know, they've been in contact with me the whole time, and I was going to contact you if there was a problem of some sort. And then we didn't have any problems, so I thought that they can come tell you themselves the good news. So it all went well. But when we sat down to talk, it was funny. They sat down they looked very sad, and I'm thinking, oh, dear Lord, what happened? And then they told me. So that's why I said you can smile. They weren't smiling at the time, but it is very good news. But please, any questions, thoughts, concerns, go ahead.
Yeah, and I appreciate you coming back and telling us how it went, because when things don't go well, we're the ones in the hot seat, and having sat in an organization on the tails of collateral debt obligations and auction rate securities that went very bad, I know that, there's a lot going on with this, when you refinance things and issue. So we didn't push out the debt, correct? Okay,
Correct.
get that, I remember that. And then, what, and I'll probably never have to deal with this again, but how did you juggle those, with those, during that 14-day period? What was your plan to just even juggle, because you defeased, so you went into, what were the mechanics of that during that 14 days? And what was the plan if, it wasn't good?
Yeah, so that's really, once you defease, we were committed. We were committed to issuing debt to cover what we defeased. And the reason that we asked the board to authorize us to not move forward unless we were at a 5% return is the odds of something happening in the market where the new bonds would be issued at a rate higher and basically eliminate any of a 5% savings was the probability was very low. That was something our financial advisors were running for us weekly, leading up to the point of defeasance, saying, here's how much the market would have to move for this transaction to, ultimately be, say, a net zero gain. And going into the defeasance, our returns were estimated well over 10%. So we had plenty of room, we felt like, to move forward with that transaction.
But, my real question, or, that answers a lot, but if I may, is, you defeased, so you laid out some things, some cash. Was it, did you use some reserves, and then those were sitting there, and then you had to refill those? So it was possible because you had some unrestricted cash somewhere that we had, and that's, and so that was just like a dip in our cash holding policy for those days?
For 2 weeks.
Is that how it worked? Okay. I hadn't caught that before, but I get it now.
That's
Thanks.
exactly right.
I'd say the two main factors that made this possible, one is a board that was willing to think about it, well, a staff that was willing to bring it to us, but then also that we had cash in the bank. If we didn't have cash in the bank, this would not have been a possibility at all. It's probably more the main point and that's important for us to realize of how we function, and even the community that's listening, to when we make decisions. If we did not have any cash in the bank, it would not even been on the table.
That's right.
So, with that, anything else shared before we're done?
Sure.
Thank you so much. Yes, sir.
So as Matt did, and you did, you thanked the board for allowing us to do this. But I just want to give Matt a lot of kudos. I mean, from the beginning, he led this effort. He put together a great team. He saw it through, through the down and then the up, and just did a great job. So thanks, Matt.
Good job. Can we do that? Good job. I like.
Yeah, actually, one more thing too. I almost forgot, but I want to thank Sandra Tozy. She's our senior financial analyst, and she helped us through this a lot. There's a lot of paperwork, a lot of mechanics, a lot of analysis that has to be done, and she was right there doing all of that.
Okay. So we're moving on to 9. This is the public hearing on rate and rule amendments. So we'll do this. We'll let you go ahead and do your thing. I'll open it up for our public hearing. I'll pull it back, and then I'll have us do our conversation. So that'll be the order we do. Go ahead.
Okay. Hello again, Matt Bowman, CFO for the record. I'm going to first introduce Robert Charpentier to talk through the first part of this, and you'll recall at the September board meeting, the board authorized us to move forward with the public process for a series of rate increases that we're talking about today. So with that, I'll turn it over to Robert to talk about the public process.
Good morning. For the record, Robert Charpentier, Trenton Meadows Water Authority. I'm just going to walk you through some of the efforts that we engaged in support of the rate adjustment process. As we always do in these things, we held a series of public meetings. We held 4, and we held them in different parts of the city: Spanish Springs Library, South Meadows Library, McKinley Arts Center, and then at TMWA. We just wanted to make sure that we were spread around and gave everybody an opportunity to come in and ask questions and make comments. And that was the real emphasis, was to try and let the public know that they're part of this process, that they can come in and comment. We let them know about these meetings via our bill insert that goes to 80,000 customers, 80,000 plus, and a newsletter that went to over 50,000 customers. And that's interesting to me because, or should be to anybody who wants to know how the public is receiving this, because we had an open rate on those of over 60%. It's over 30,000 people opened and looked at the email, to what extent they looked. we don't know, but we do know that we got the word out successfully. And the reason I mention that and emphasize it, because we didn't have awesome attendance at these public workshops. We had 3 at one, 4 at another. The one at TMWA nobody came to. We did not get a ton of public comment. So by the way, the comments are in your packet if you haven't already seen it. So they range, the comments are what you would expect them to be. But my interpretation of that engagement is that people saw that this was happening, read through the materials, and, nobody likes a rate increase, but they get it, and there wasn't a great deal of concern. So that's where we're at. This was also posted in all of the normal places. We had a web page, we had a banner on our homepage. So we're out there. The comments we got, some positive. So certainly a number of people appreciated the process and what we went to. The meetings themselves, we had a whole gamut of information where Matt walked. There were definitely some people who showed up who had a lot of questions, and he walked them very well through the process. I'm always gratified when I see people show up with concern and we walk them through it, and they walk out nodding thoughtfully and say, okay, yeah, I don't love a rate increase, but I get it. And I feel like you folks are doing a good job managing. So are there any questions?
Let's go ahead and go around. Michelle?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the comments submitted from the e-newsletter that we received, and they're not a lot, but did we write these folks back? Did we call them?
Well, when they put in submissions online, they automatically got a notice that their comment had been received. To the extent, I think Matt could do a better job in talking through how we responded to the notes. Matt?
Yep. The answer is no, we did not respond to those individual comments.
Okay. It would be great if we did. I try to because I think on some of these, there's just a little bit of misinformation happening. And so I try to, tell folks when they email me it's something that I'm like, oh, that's not quite right. I try to, let them know the correct information. So I know it's not a ton of people, but if we could email them back, and also the folks who submitted on the website comment form, just to make sure that they know that a real person's behind all this. And so thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, nowadays with AI, you definitely want to make sure it's a real person. That's just 100% true. Over communication is our goal, period. And so we appreciate that. So, sir.
Actually, my comment is on the exact same line as Member Hill. Obviously, the people that came in person, you did an awesome job of responding and explaining and helping them understand why and how, what the impact was going to be on them, because in general, the comments were positive. Like you said, I don't want a rate increase, but I understand how and why. But my concern is the e-newsletter responses. I really feel we could have done a better job in responding to those and helping them understand, basically telling the story. What I found interesting was the reason they don't want an increase on the most part was for the same reason that we need to take one. The expenses have risen so great because of inflation that we need to adjust accordingly. I mean, that's part of it. But it's also the reason why they're saying they can't afford anymore. But I think helping to understand the why, explaining the story, I think would have been great. Thank you.
One that I'd like to share, Ms. Stewart brought up in the last meeting we were just in Western Regional Water, had to do with doing a Zoom meeting. And they're seeing some better results out of that. And so you want to speak to that?
Sure. So we've been doing a series of workshops. We're changing a lot of our development regulations. It's very technical, right? But what we were surprised at recently was we had a series of in-person meetings spread around Reno. Maybe 1 or 2 people, 3 people, 4 people came. They did 3 Zooms, and over 100 people came. And then the second one was also over 100, and the third one was maybe like 85. So it was an incredible difference. And I think I was just noting at our last meeting the shift to acceptance, and not only acceptance, but embracing the virtual technology. And especially when meetings are in the evening, it facilitates alternate stuff doing in the evening. They can do multitask. They can take, let's say, the kids somewhere and participate in the Zoom, or they can do the Zoom and work later, whatever they're doing, but it's more accommodating to people's schedule, and they're not driving all over town. So it's just a thought for going forward. I know that we maybe don't want to hear I don't like your rate increase, but at the same time, we have the technology, we have the know-how, and it's something you might want to add into the complement or almost replace. That's what we've started doing. I think we started having one in person and then a number of virtuals, and the virtuals could even be at different times of day. It could be at a lunch hour, could be an evening. So just some thoughts.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Perkins.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would err on the side of staying as in person as you can. I think these are very important conversations that impact people's household budget, and a lot of people want it face-to-face, but one Zoom, I think, is a great idea. Were people hotter, if you will, about the rate increases than you saw last time we went out for a rate increase? And did this process?
Yeah, I'll speak to that from what I understand, because I wasn't here the last time we did this. But from what I understand, people were hotter then.
Okay.
Kind of like Robert alluded to, the people that came, and you can read the comments, and I would say limited number of comments. But certainly the people that attended the workshops came in questioning, some of them like really questioning what is going on? Tell me why are you spending this money, and what's really going on? Why do you need this increase? We're on a fixed income. Can you talk to us about that? But as Robert said, and we had enough time set aside, and because the attendance was low, I could spend time with these people individual for 20, 30 minutes, even talking through TMWA's operations. That, what do you want to know about it? Here's how we think about planning. Here's how we think about financial management. Here's what the rate increases mean. Here's what it'll mean for you. And sort of, also here's what could happen if we didn't do that. Here's where the sacrifices would come. And so, I would say there was less contention this time around from what I understand the last time.
That's good to know. And I think that builds upon a lot of the good budgeting work that goes on here, from Sonia, organizing a very realistic CIP, explaining to the board what these year's priorities are, working with the board on the rate increases in increments in the 5-year policy. That is exceptional. I talk all over town about it. And the reason I'm asking is because I'm feeling a little hotness over at Reno. And I've been very critical about it. No surprise to anyone, but I've been on Reno since 2012 when they hadn't raised sewer rates in a long time, and the gift to the new coming council people was a 7.5 and then a CPI, and it's been CPI compounding ever since. And just this last year, people are hot. Then the first couple of years they were hot. Now they're hot. And, Reno's also trying to do the sewer utility is flailing, and people are hot on that too. And I think, so I'm feeling hotness, and I'm seeing utility electric power costs, really hitting people. And so I was trying to figure out from your perspective, or our perspective here, is it a general tenor of economic conditions that have, built up on these household costs, or is it a tenor that I'm seeing over in Reno, maybe because they don't have that baseline performance that you guys have in terms of justifying rates?
That's not really for you to answer that part.
No, I'm just saying, I'm trying to understand how.
I know I think I get what you're saying.
And I'm cut off again by Mr. Chair, so I'll just stop. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. With that said, we can come back to public comment, to our comments if there needs to be more, but this is a public hearing. I'm going to open that up. Did you guys have more that you needed to share before I do that? Okay. It is officially open. If there's anybody out there with a public hearing would like to share, going once, twice, 3, 4 times, and I'm going to pull it back. Any final thing before we come to a decision on this? I think we've talked about this quite a bit. Yes, sir.
Just going to 9B.
Yeah.
Okay, go for it. Into 9B. Do I have to open that back up too each time?
No, I do. You do not.
Okay, good to know. So please share, and then we'll open it again for us if there's any questions.
Okay, thank you. Matt Bowman, CFO, again for the record. So as you can see in the staff report, we are recommending the board refer to a second reading on the planned rate increases of 4.5%, 4%, and 3.5% in 2024, 25, and 26. Then annual increases going forward tied to CPIU in the Western region. The CPI-related increases would be capped at 4.5%, and there'd be a minimum of 1% going forward, and that's just to provide some guardrails around those increases. I want to reiterate that tying future increases to CPI is not a set it and forget it policy. We do not intend to do that, just like we have done every year. We will bring the funding plan to the board and to the SAC every fall, and at that point, the board can modify, defer, or skip any of the upcoming rate increases. And so the financial planning continues every single year, as it always has, year over year, looking long range with a bottom-up budget. And that's how we do our financial planning. That will not change with the CPI increases. So then just briefly to recap, how did we get here today? So in August, we brought an agenda item with this plan. The board asked us to consider a couple additional scenarios, which we brought back in September. At that point, the board recommended that we move forward with the public outreach process, which we just talked about. The main driver with our increased revenue and what's driving these rate increases is inflation, as we've already talked about today. Just to quickly put a couple numbers around it, over the last 5 years, CPIU has gone up 20%, and we've had rate increases of 7.5%. So we are behind in relation to CPI. And as you know, financial management, including these rate increases, is important for financial stability as well as rating agencies, which is important to us as we just went through a debt transaction, and that's where it really comes into play. And the other thing I want to touch on is just rate affordability. So that's something that we consider and we weigh very heavily when we're looking at this. Obviously, balancing financial stability, meeting goals, excellent customer service, along with affordability is the key. I think the proposed rate increases achieve that. And you'll remember back to the funding plan, what we're asking for, I do feel is the minimum. Our coverage is right at 1.5 times with using the rate stabilization fund. So I do think our ask is at a minimum. And then in the staff report, you can see what the impact on ratepayers is on the median customer over these 3 years of planned rate increases. For example, the median residential customer, the winter increase is $1.24 per month, $2.56 per month in the summer. So again, this is the first of 2 readings, so the ask is for the board to move to refer to a second reading. And happy to answer any other questions.
Let's go and open this up. Ms. Hill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really appreciate Mr. Bowman working with this board, because I know we challenged staff to come back and bring us some other scenarios. And I think it shows, that this board is really trying to be thoughtful in our approach to this. And I really appreciate you showing us all the different ways we could do this and kind of the consequences if we delay or we do different percentages. So thank you for your work on that. I know it's been a lift, and I'm happy to support the first reading. I just, Mr. Chairman, is there any way we could ask for a Zoom before it comes to the second reading so we could just collect any other thoughts, or is that something that's too late for us to do at this point?
I think we can do whatever we want as asking, in theory, so you know. The only concern I have is timing, because that could be, it could take a month to do that.
Oh, okay.
So the answer is potentially, the idea is good, but just to put the noticing out there, everything, that means we'll be putting this on hold.
Oh, okay.
That'd be my concern.
All right.
Yes, ma'am.
I was not at the September meeting, so some of the details may have been lost on me. So I get the 3-year increment, but are you saying in hand and glove with that is a policy of annual increases between the 1.5 and the 4.5?
That's right.
Yeah, that's a policy I won't support. I've always been very consistent, whether it's Reno City Council salaries that a previous council set to a CPI, and I tried to break that. Never got any support on that. Whether it's calling out RTC's set it and go gas tax rates, which are, so out of whack when you look at what other jurisdictions, particularly RTC South, are. Set it and forget it. And, then Reno Sewer, I've always, talked so much about how well I think this organization does, and having the board in a comfortable part of making the hardest votes we have, which are rate increases, and now we're letting ourselves off easy. I'm here to do the make the hard decisions, not necessarily just go on field trips and, photo ops. And I think that a set it and forget it is really unfortunate. I like the fact that you put a range on it, but 4.5 to 4.5 to 4.5, I think it makes agencies lazy too,
Can I answer something? Because
Yeah, sure. Cut in. I wasn't done, but please, by all means.
Well, I want to make sure what you're saying is accurate, so you don't have to retract it, because it's not set it and forget it. It'll come to us every year. It's a guide for them to be able to set their budgets by, and all they do is bring it to us, and then we do that. So you can please finish. I don't want, you weren't here last time, and so I don't want, so you, please.
Yeah. And that argument's been made to the city council too, is you can always change the ordinance too. And I don't see it. I mean, I see it as this prepping you over several months to how you want to do your rate structure, going out, calibrated to the CIP. We don't need it this year because we're at we're seeing numbers of CPI numbers building up. And the CPI numbers, because I was liaison to the Reno Financial Advisory Board the first couple of years I came on, and they had a lot of finance people who had heartburn on that. Why is the cost of, I don't know, timber coming from China or, the forests in British Columbia impacting Reno's water sales? Or, what are the drivers of those housing costs in, the LA basin? So I'm not going to be there. It's philosophically a problem for me. I don't think it's best practice. I think maybe you're responding to this very, exceptional inflationary period we just went through, but we managed. And so I won't support. I think it's derelict of bodies to go on CPIs. Thank you.
So I do want to reiterate, though, to anybody that comes back and listens to this, make sure it's known that this is not a set it, forget it thing. We do look at every year, and we actually, I don't believe it's lazy on us at all. So with that said, is there anybody else would like to share anything? Okay. Are you done?
I'm done.
Okay, then I'm going to look for a motion. I don't have to open this back up, you said, correct?
You may want to open it up for public comment just because we did not cover this item.
Okay, then I'll open it up for public comment one more time. Going once, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Come on, Bill, you don't want to say nothing? Okay, we'll bring that back in. And with that said, I'm looking for a motion. I have a first.
Second.
I have a second. Any more discussion? I see none. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed.
We have one in opposition, and other than that, everybody's in favor. Thank you so much. Great job on that. You guys worked hard, and I do appreciate, I will say, of listening to the comments of all of us and trying to pull back and give us options. I agree. That is awesome, and I do hope that our community understands that we take this very serious, and it's not a light decision by any means. So, okay, General Manager's Report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I'd like to introduce Nate Allen to the TMWA board. Nate started last Monday as TMWA's new Director of Natural Resources.
Come on down.
We're very excited to have Nate join the team. Nate brings a wealth of experience in the field of water resource innovation and sustainability, and I'll give him a minute to talk here in a few seconds. But just as TMWA grapples with future water resource uncertainty and challenges, I think having someone with Nate's experience, his skill set, his leadership is just going to be invaluable in the years to come. And then as far as John Enlow, who was the Director of Natural Resources, he'll continue in that role for 3 months to assist Nate with the transition. And then after that, John will continue to remain with TMWA for a few years, just working on some very significant projects such as American Flat. John will also continue to provide his great mentorship that he's done with TMWA, because that can't be understated. He's really mentored a lot of young professionals. But with that, I'll turn it over to Nate just to give a brief
Well, the last
introduction.
person there sang a song.
That was not on the job description.
Okay, fair enough.
You'll have to come to the staff party next year for karaoke and join us on that one. Good morning. Thanks, John. For the record, my name is Nate Allen. John, thanks both for the opportunity, of course, to join the Water Start team in this new role and giving me the chance to introduce myself to all of you this morning. Really look forward to stepping in and joining a world-class team at TMWA to help provide a resilient and sustainable water supply to the future of our community. We'll look forward to working with all of you on that. I've had the chance to work with TMWA for almost 10 years in my previous role, leading this organization called Water Start, which was founded here in Nevada. It was a innovation association focused on helping utilities adapt to change. Started here in Nevada, as I mentioned. TMWA was our first member. Along with Southern Nevada Water Authority, we received support from Governor's Office of Economic Development during the Sandoval administration, quickly grew from being a program within the Desert Research Institute to being an international association with members in Australia, in the United Kingdom, even in places like California, which is a big cultural challenge for us at times. Joking aside, those members delivered water to about 40 million people, and a large part of what I had the chance to do in leading that association was learn best practices and learn how we can utilize new technologies and adapt to change to make sure that water is not something that's at risk to ratepayers. So I'm really looking forward to serving now, joining the full-time team at TMWA. So thank you.
Thank you. So glad you're here.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And then just, again, as I said at the last board meeting, our hydro team had set a record for, I think, the first quarter. They've also set a record for the 6 months between July and December. So kudos to Ryan Dixon, Chris Hires, and the rest of the hydro generation team. Also, in the board packet, you'll see a shout out to Justin Greenland. He's an inspector who kind of went above and beyond as all of the TMWA team usually does. So I wanted to bring that to the board's attention. And then just on a sad note, Chuck Swagels, who was our conservation coordinator for about 7 years, passed away. Chuck came to TMWA. This was sort of his second career, but he really became endeared to the TMWA team and the community. Chuck did a good job, a wonderful job, along with Bill Houck, really educating our community on why we have to use water efficiently, and the why, the reason behind that, not just using the water efficiently and fixing all your fixtures, but the reason why to be a good steward of water resources for this community. He was also, kind of a regular at TMWA Smart About Water Day and our Earth Day. And just as a teammate, Chuck was quite simply just wonderful. Always greeted everybody with a smile, really cared about his coworkers, and he'll be deeply missed. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. Any questions for the general manager in his report? Okay. We're going to move on to public comment, our final public comment. Is there any public comment? I see none. Board comments, requests, future agenda items. I would like to share real quick that we just take a moment of silence for Jason Geddes, as mentioned earlier, and Chuck Swagels. Excuse me. Some people might wonder why we bring this up. I think it's because we're a family, and TMWA works together. We don't get to see you all the time, but you just definitely get to see each other, and we value you. And so please, thank you for letting us take a moment of silence for these guys. Thank you very much. And with that said, we are adjourned before 11 o'clock. Mr. Reese.
Amazing.